Welcome to the uh, week 6 review. Sorry, I forgot what week it was. We were on a bit of a hiatus. I was moving and busy with life, so sadness. But we're back. Um, and we're talking about all the matchups from this past week, starting off with another Thursday night Amazon Prime speciality. Commanders versus Bears. If you took the alt under in this one, congratulations. Hope you enjoyed your winnings. Commanders 12, Bears 7. Allie, anything fantasy relevant here?
Well, I don't think very many people are running out a ton of people from these teams. But there was a couple. Fields, he passed the ball 27 times, which might sound average, but for Justin Fields, that's like 7 games combined.
That's like a
So,
hundred for
I mean,
anybody else.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, he threw the ball 27 times. Montgomery goes 80 yards on 16 opportunities, so he's getting quite a bit of usage. Pettis got 4 catches on 7 targets for 84 and a touchdown. Mooney 7 for 12 for 68, and he had a pretty good game. I picked him up in the league this week. He seems to make some of those crazy catches, so maybe with some more targets, we'll see what he does. Wentz sucks again, so I know that we were kind of high on him a couple weeks ago when he had a couple good games. He was QB 4 or 5 every week, but he sucks again. And Robinson got 17 carries for 6 yards and a touchdown, but overall, the wide receivers were just awful for Washington. So I mean, the only one I really see playing over these next couple weeks for Washington is Brian Robinson. I mean, coming off those injuries, it was pretty crazy to see him have such a decent game. 60 yards isn't crazy, but he got a touchdown. So, um, I thought he passed the eye test this weekend. Depending on my bench, I might run Brian Robinson out there in a flex position, maybe. But he was fun to watch. But other than that, it was an Amazon Prime special.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice to see with Robinson. Also, important to note that he's got that dog in him. He got shot and he came back faster than Keenan Allen. So, Keenan, what you doing, bro? Let's get back on the field there, buddy. Um, Wentz, like, what did he do? Break his finger or something? So they're playing Taylor Heineke going forward, I guess, starting this week. You would have to wonder why they drafted a quarterback if they were just going to run Heineke out there again, anyways. But that's a different story for another time. Um, this was a pretty funny game. I had this on the multi stream, and like it was 14-0 Falcons, and I was like, "Wow, I'm so glad I played Jeff Wilson because this is going to be abysmal," and it indeed was. Caleb, the Jeff Wilson experience has a bump in the road.
Yeah. I mean, I was in the same boat as you. I played him, and I think he got me like negative half a point because he had like 6 carries and also put the ball on the ground, which he's getting pretty good at doing. Um, so, I mean, like, I think Elijah Mitchell is supposed to come back after this week, this coming week. So, like, maybe you'll get one more good Jeff Wilson game, and then it's probably time to just ditch him if you have people that don't pay attention in your league. Maybe try to move him this week. And maybe you can get someone if they're a fool. Um, but yeah, it's been a good ride. I had Jeff Wilson last year when Elijah Mitchell got hurt. It might just honestly like be worth like drafting this guy super late because Elijah Mitchell seems to miss like 8 weeks every year, and Jeff Wilson's actually a pretty good back when he's the feature back in that offense. Um, but aside from that, yeah, not a good week for the JWJ train. Otherwise, Mariota had just a retarded game. Like, I think he had like 25 fantasy points and he only threw the ball 14 times, which is just like so stupid. Um, the Falcons are just a stupid fantasy team. Like they don't have anything that makes fantasy football fun. Uh, I don't even remember the guy's first name. Caleb Huntley, is that it? And Tyler Algier. They both carry the ball like literally like 50% of the time every game. So you can't really start either of them. Uh, Drake London looked exciting at the beginning of the year. They don't throw at all now. For whatever reason, like they were able to kind of run the ball against the Niners, which like the Niners defense, I think is a pretty good unit. So I was kind of surprised by that. They did have they scored a defensive touchdown this game, I'm pretty sure. Or maybe that was a week ago. I don't freaking know. But the Niners look terrible. Garoppolo threw the ball 41 times, which is not what Shanahan wants to do at all. Ayuk had a really nice game. He caught 8 balls for 83 yards, had 2 touchdowns. So if you played him, you're feeling pretty good. Deebo Samuel is like, I traded for this guy, and he's had some big games. I think it was a Thursday night game against the Rams where he broke like 18 tackles and cribbed one for like 60 yards. It was pretty fun. But he's definitely not as productive as he was last year. And yeah, like the Falcons, there's nothing really to look for there. The Niners, I think like you're obviously starting Deebo Samuel if you have him. Ayuk's probably worth a look. Jeff Wilson, you'll probably get 1, maybe 2 more good weeks out of. Kittle finally looked like a tight end rather than a 6th offensive lineman. He actually caught 8 balls, which is a lot for him because usually they just use him to block. But I think like you said, they got down so early in this game that it was like we almost just have to throw it now, which is why you see a guy like Garoppolo slinging it 41 times. But yeah, just like one of those weird games that like I still think the Niners are a good team. I don't think the Falcons are a good team. So it feels like one of those we'll get to the end of the season and look back on and be like just this like weird aberration. But
Yeah, it's getting to be weird with defenses because there's so many of these defenses that we thought, like I picked up Jags D and thought that they were going to be elite, and then they've just been dumpstered on 2 weeks in a row, and people were either running out Niners D every week or at least most of the time, and then they do nothing against the Falcons. I
What about
don't.
Kyle Pitts?
Kyle Pitts got a touchdown, baby.
Yeah, he did.
Trade him for anything you can get right now. I mean, we'll talk about this more another time, but anybody between him and Drake London, I mean, I think Drake London is a great player, but Arthur Smith is just not interested in playing football like it's 2000 or later. I mean, throwing the ball 14 times in a game is egregious. Like, it doesn't matter how good Drake London is. Prime Antonio Brown is not going to perform in fantasy if his quarterback only throws the ball 14 times. I have him in a league, and I'm trying to get out from underneath it because it's just not going to be possible. Um, Another surprising game, the Pats stomped the Browns 38-15. Um, Zappy had 17 points. Um, Most of that was to Tyquan Thornton, which if you follow the real NFL draft, not the fantasy draft, um, you know this guy. I'm pretty sure he was the fastest receiver at the combine this year. He has like legit 4.2 speed, which is ridiculous, but this is the first time we've really seen that. He carried the ball a couple times, so I'm kind of interested to see if he morphs into that Deebo Samuel role for them, which I think Belichick is capable of having a guy like that and using him the right way. If you have a weak bench, I would just grab this guy for now because you could probably get him for free. Whereas if he does it again this week, you're not going to be able to get him unless you're first on the waiver wire. Um, Ramondre is finally doing Ramondre things now that Damian Harris got the freak out of the way. I mean if you're either a Patriots fan or a Ramondre owner, you're hoping that Damien Harris is hurt for as long as possible because he's just not as good as Ramondre. This is crazy to see Ramondre snap shares over 80% in this game. Um, I mean, just a 3 down back. He caught 4 passes, which isn't something he normally does a lot. So I think for me, having Ramondre, I'm hoping he takes over even when Harris comes back. He looks like a guy that can do fantasy things with 60 to 70% of the snaps, anyways. He goes for 2 touchdowns in this one, and Chubb for the first time this year does nothing. I think he had like 7 points. They were kind of getting smoked, so maybe couldn't run the ball as much. But the Pats defense looked really good. Amari Cooper had 12 targets, but only got 4 of them. I'm not sure what happened. I saw him catch a touchdown that they said was a touchdown, but then I was watching the replay and I was like, that's not a touchdown. And then now I see that he had a touchdown. So I don't know if that stood or what happened because this was like one of my.
There's 2 different plays, I think.
Okay.
Like they showed one on Red Zone where they were like Amari Cooper touchdown, and then I was like checking my fantasy app, and then it was like, oh yeah, he didn't score, and then I think he scored later.
So he scored. Okay. I was wondering about that because I can't remember exactly what happened on the one that didn't count, but I was like pretty sure it wasn't a touchdown, and then I have like 5 games going at once, so I get sidetracked. DPJ, Donovan Peoples-Jones had 76 yards. I mean, that's passable, serviceable, especially in a deep league. But the Browns look really bad in this one. This is a problem with Chubb is that he's been a great back, but even on regular games he's only hovering around 50% snap share. So it's tough in a game like this where the game script isn't going your way to produce fantasy points when you're only on the field half the time. I mean, that's just a problem that is going to happen with him. Continuing with the upsets, the Jets stomped the Packers 27-10. Jets defense had the Packers lost in the sauce, Caleb.
Yeah, before we go to this, I just wanted one quick thing on New England. Like, it feels like 3 weeks ago we were like, Belichick can't do this anymore. It's so silly that we continue saying this. Like, Belichick, if you look at what the Patriots are right now, is basically he's like you when you're like 14 years old and you went 19-0 and won the Super Bowl in Madden, and you're like, let me try it on all Madden right now. He's got like Matt Patricia, who's a defensive coach, as his offensive coordinator. He was playing Mac Jones, who's not good at quarterback. Now he's got what's his name? Bailey Zappi or something.
Yeah. He was like a 6th round pick or something.
Yeah, and like I know he had massive numbers in college, but he played in like the MAC or the Sun Belt Conference or something, which is fine. Like, good quarterbacks have come from the MAC, but like it's just so funny to me that like every year we have this conversation. Like, it's been every year since Tom Brady left New England, that everyone's like, oh, Belichick can't do it anymore, can't do it without Brady. And like, as a Brady hater, it just makes me want to throw up. But like, Brady stinks now, and the Bucs look like they stink, which we'll get to another time. But like, Belichick just like, he figures out ways to win. And like, Cleveland, they're not a good team, but they're not a bad team either. And like, the Patriots just destroyed them. So like, I just wanted to like touch on that briefly. I think the fact that Matt Patricia is an offensive coordinator in the NFL is freaking hilarious.
And he's also got his kid as the linebacker coach, isn't he?
Yes,
Steve Belichick. It's like
Steve,
he's like, yeah, let's make this harder. Bring my
he's
kid
the one
in.
that looks like he does like meth before every play, because he's like always got his tongue out and like he has a mullet haircut and stuff. But yeah, it's like, I'll make my son the defensive coordinator. I'll make Matt Patricia, who was like a very good defensive coordinator, then went and lost like 100 games with the Lions as a head coach. I'll make him the offensive coordinator, and then I'll get like two white, untalented quarterbacks, and just like play those guys.
And
Yeah, it's just wild.
the fact that they were the first ones to slow down Chubb this year, like honestly, off the top of my head, I could probably name the least Patriots defenders of any team in the NFL. Like
100%, but they
they're
do this every year. They did this like during the Super Bowl runs where you would know like they had some good players during those runs, right? Like early on, like Rodney Harrison was really good, Richard Seymour was really good. And then like later they had like Stephon Gilmore and guys like that, but like they were never like a defense where you were like, yeah, there's like five all pros on that team. Like you think about the Steelers defenses or the Ravens defenses, and you could name like Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, like guys like that, where like the Patriots have never had anyone like that.
yeah.
But they're always just like right there.
They got
Um,
Richard Seymour into the Hall of Fame, and he is, if you look at his career stats, he's nothing special, that's for sure.
yeah, 100%. But anyways, on to the Jets. Yeah, the Packers don't look very good. Rodgers is like I before the season was a big proponent that Rodgers was the best quarterback ever. I still think he probably is the most talented quarterback ever, but like he doesn't look very good this year. Um, just like I don't know if it's the lack of receiver talent or like he just hasn't meshed with these guys yet. But like he's got Randall Cobb, who he's played a billion games with. He's got Lazard, who's been there a while. He's got Tanyan. Um, like it feels like he should be able to figure this out, but just hasn't materialized yet. And they can't really run the ball that well either, which is kind of disturbing because I think before the season you looked at that backfield and you were like, that's probably like if we rewind and I put myself there, I probably am thinking that's the best 1-2 punch in the NFL. It's either that or in Cleveland. Um, and like neither guy has really produced all that much. Aaron Jones tends to have like games where he'll score like 3 touchdowns because LaFleur just decides like this is going to be my Aaron Jones game, but like he's not very consistent. But yeah, that offense just kind of looks lost. The Jets actually are like pretty fun. Um, Garrett Wilson it like stinks, but we all knew that already. Like Brees Hall is pretty good. Um, he had like 120 yards or something and a touchdown. Uh, I think the best guy to watch in this game is Sauce Gardner. I mean, this guy you can't play him in fantasy unless you're like in a really exotic league where you're allowed to play defenders. But this guy is awesome. Like he is a stud. Um, and like he's just so fun to watch. Like he goes out there every week and is like clamping the other team's best receiver like week in and week out. Lazard actually had a pretty decent game, even though he was matched up with Sauce like most of the game. Um, but like it's the Jets, and like the fact that they have a guy who is like that good as a rookie, I think is really encouraging if you're a Jets fan when like there's not much else to look forward to. But like from a fantasy perspective, aside from Brees Hall, like very boring game, not a lot of production.
Yeah, I think you could drop everyone on the Jets at this point. I personally, I want to keep Garrett Wilson just for a couple weeks. I don't want to keep Corey Davis. The Elijah Moore situation is a nightmare because he gets 0 targets and then goes on Twitter and talks about how he's not mad that he got 0 targets, but like he definitely noticed, but like as long as they win, he's not going to say about getting 0 targets, but like you should know that he knows that he didn't get any targets. But I the Jets are the Jets. So like I want to pump the brakes here and like give this a couple weeks because it's not certainly outside the range of outcomes that they go back to getting trounced every week. And I'm every week I'm going to be looking at the box score, like how many times did Zach Wilson throw the ball? Because if that goes back up to 42, 44, 48 attempts, like it was with Joe Flacco, I think Zach Wilson's not that good at throwing the ball. But when you're down, everybody wants to have a balanced offense till you're down 14 points. All of a sudden, if you need to score, you got to throw the ball. So even if, hopefully we get like a warning game where he throws the ball 40 some times and none of the receivers do anything and we can grab those guys back. But right now, the way their defense is playing and the way Breece Hall is playing, I'm gonna drop these guys for now and hope that I can get them back. I will say though, the Jets, I believe, have one of the easiest schedules in the fantasy playoffs. So like, keep that in mind. Like, you could be dropping a league winner, and I think if you're a really good team right now, if you're 6-0, 5-1, maybe you can find a roster spot for Elijah Moore for now, especially in like a 12-team league. Like, there's not going to be guys out there on the waiver wire that have more upside than him. A game that if I had to understand what happened, I wouldn't be able to talk about for even 1 second. The Colts beat the Jaguars 34-27. Now, it's a bit weird. These teams have played twice in the first 6 weeks of the season, which seems weird to me. If you can remember, back in week 2, the Colts got shut out by the Jags, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I was on here saying that the Colts were the worst team in the NFL. And, I mean, the Broncos are a team in the NFL, so they're not the worst team in the NFL. But, Matt Ryan throws the ball 58 times. What? I mean, how that was ever in the game plan, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if, like, their coach thought to himself, hey, we're trying to run the ball up the middle 84 times and we're getting wrecked, so maybe we'll try throwing the ball, which would have been a weird strategy considering Matt Ryan has looked terrible this year. Either way, I don't know, but he throws the ball 58 times. They put up 34 points. Deion Jackson, who some people actually streamed, which I have to give you respect where it's due if you did. I'm pretty sure in like half and full PPR he was RB1. He wasn't RB1 in 0 PPR standard. Pity City targeted 16 times, although Matt Ryan can't be bothered to look for him in the red zone. I don't know what's up with that. He's always open except in the red zone. Paris Campbell played every snap, caught 7 balls on 11 targets, 57 yards and a touchdown. That's something to look for. I mean, we always talk about this. Okay, the Colts threw the ball 58 times and they won. This is a team that's incentivized to win. They went and got Matt Ryan. They thought they had a good defense. They have one of the best young backs in the league. They have Michael Pittman, who can be an alpha receiver. So they want to win. So they threw 58 times and they won the game. To me, seems like they're going to want to throw the ball 58 times again. Keep throwing the ball. I mean, they've tried handing it off to Taylor umpteen times and it hasn't worked. He's banged up. Hines got hurt. Like, I don't know. I'm looking at Paris Campbell. Can he be a number 2 in the NFL? Yeah, I think he can. If he's getting 11 targets, that means he must be open a good bit. That's a nice sized target share, even though it is on 58 passes. Alec Pierce, a guy that a lot of people were on, he got 49 yards and a touchdown. Jacksonville backfield is getting twisted with it. It's getting to where you're not going to be wanting to run out any of them. We thought ETN was emerging, and then his snap share goes down, and then Jermichael Hasty comes in the game, which I couldn't even have told you he was on their roster. There's lots of guys in the league that are playable in a split backfield, but when you got a third back in that mix, it becomes an absolute nightmare. Um, Christian Kirk didn't do anything, saved the game with a touchdown. If you can get rid of this guy at anything close to the value he had after the first couple weeks, do it as soon as possible. It hasn't been looking good for him. I mean, maybe he was on had Gilmore on him, but this has been like 3 weeks in a row that he's done pretty much nothing. Um, Vikings beat the Dolphins. Really weird situation. Caleb, what happened at quarterback for the Dolphins?
Yeah, like they ran out Skylar Thompson to start the game, and then he like gets a cut or like otherwise hurts his hand somehow. And I think he was also like being evaluated for a concussion, which like at this point, if you're playing quarterback, like you should just not play for the Dolphins because like every single guy that goes out there gets permanent brain damage. Um, so like he goes out, they bring Bridgewater back in, which is like if Bridgewater was available, like I don't know why you just don't start him. He's like a pretty serviceable quarterback, at least in my mind, as far as backups go. Anyways, um, yeah, like actually a kind of an exciting game despite all that stuff. I was watching a good bit of this game. Um, Dalvin Cook stinks. Like every year he gets drafted like with these other top tier running backs and like he's just not as good. Like if you're drafting this guy, I understand there's like injury concerns with Christian McCaffrey, but like if you're drafting this guy over like Derrick Henry or even like Christian McCaffrey, like you just have something wrong with your brain. Um, he ends up like salvaging because like at the end of the game they hand the ball off and the Dolphins are like selling out to stop and he gets through like the first wave of defenders and ends up cribbing like a really long one. So like
He had
you'll look
like
at
2 points at that point, and it was
yeah,
like
so
the
like
fourth quarter.
yeah, and it was like a 70-yard touchdown. So like people will be like, "Oh, 15 points Dalvin Cook," but like if you watch the game, like he's so bad. Um both the Dolphins running backs just completely flopped. Part of that is like they were trailing a lot in this game and had to throw. I think Bridgewater ended up like in relief throwing for like 330 yards or something, which you don't see very often. Um, Mostert, I'm still like very high on him. He gets a lot of touches. We know that McDaniels likes him from the days in San Francisco, and he is like an explosive player. So like I still like him. Particularly, I think he goes against the Steelers. Um, is that this coming week on Sunday night?
Sunday night, yeah.
Yeah, so like I love that matchup because the Steelers' run defense is not very good.
And
Um,
Tua is back for more punishment in that game too.
yeah, um, yeah. Hopefully for him, T.J. Watt is not anywhere close to returning because Tua might go from the concussion protocol back to the field and then just directly into the hospital again. Um, the Dolphins receivers are dope. Tyreek Hill at 177 yards. He just is like no one can cover him. I think when Tua comes back, like this guy is poised to just go nuts. He's been putting up like monster numbers with Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson throwing him the ball. Waddle had over 100 yards. He only caught 6 balls, but went for almost 130 yards. He's awesome. He did get banged up a couple times in this game, so I'd keep an eye. I'm not sure if they've slapped a designation on him yet or not, but I'd keep an eye on his health because he had something. He came into the game with a groin injury. He did something to like either his knee or his ankle and came out and then went back in, and then late in the game did something to his shoulder and came back in, but something to keep an eye on. He seems to be banged up quite a bit, and I know Hill has had the injury designation the last couple weeks, but like it doesn't really seem like it matters when you're catching 12 balls for 177 yards. On the Viking side, Justin Jefferson had 6 catches for 100 yards. Thielen just keeps like merchanting touchdowns. This guy's so washed, but like every time they get in the red zone, for whatever reason, he just catches touchdowns. Um, Mike Gesicki's the worst player in the NFL, uh, but he caught 2 touchdowns in this game. The guy literally does nothing. Like he is just wide open in the end zone. They throw him the ball. He like does the most disgusting gritty dance you've ever seen. Looks like a 55-year-old like suburban dad trying to go viral on TikTok. And then like the next drive, he's matched up 1-on-1 with a corner who's like 2 feet shorter than him, and they just throw up a jump ball, and he somehow gets out jumped by like a guy that's like half his size and gets it knocked away from him. But yeah, like if you're into guys like that, he does seem to get a fair number of red zone targets. But with Tua coming back, I wouldn't expect that to continue. But yeah, like you said, a weird game, weird quarterback situation. Dolphins are kind of like just trying to tread water until they can get Tua back, which looks like it'll happen this week. So I think if you've got either of those Dolphins receivers or Mostert against the Steelers defense that's played inspired this week, like they looked pretty good. But they're just decimated by injuries now, and I also don't think that the Bucs offense is what most people think it is. So I'd feel good about like running any of those guys out there. And then obviously you're playing Justin Jefferson. You're still playing Dalvin Cook if you have him. And you're probably playing Thielen at this point because he seems to get a touchdown like more often than not. So
Yeah, the Bengals, I guess you could say, get back on track, but like it was way closer than you would have thought if you knew that the Bengals were going to get back on track. Allie, they gave up 26 to the Saints. What's going on there?
Yeah, so I'd say their offense is back on track. I mean, the Saints defense is pretty good, and I'd say they're 2 for 3. So Burrow, he got over 300 yards, rushing touchdown. Chase looks to be back, 10 targets, 7 catches, 132 yards. Mixon is the one that I'd say isn't back quite yet, but he still scored, so he got some points. He's probably on the right track to getting back. It just seems like one of these weeks he's gonna have to break, but I mean we're going into week 7, so hoping that Joe Mixon can do something some of these weeks because he got drafted pretty high. Higgins underwhelms again, 10 targets but only 47 yards. I wouldn't really be running him out there at this point. I think there's enough other options at the wide receiver position. Even if you just stream something week to week based on matchups, it seems like there's at least a couple wide receivers that are getting pretty open each week. So at least in the couple of leagues that I'm in, the leagues that I'm in. For all those people that picked up Taysom Hill after he got a bunch of touchdowns last week, well, he did nothing. So congratulations if you're in a dumb league that lets you run him out of tight end. Because he did nothing.
You
Kamara,
sacrificed your dignity, and in exchange, you got nothing. So, congratulations.
yes, yes. Um, you get the punishment that you deserve, I guess, if you run him out there. But Kamara got 124 yards. And maybe Smith can be looked at being streamed going forward. But it's nice to see Kamara get over 100 yards. With a couple of his injuries, especially that 9:30 game, when he had that injury and then didn't play. That was kind of tough for a bunch of people because they had him in. You sleep in a little bit on Sunday, wake up, and it's like, oh wait, he didn't play. So hopefully they played him this week and got some points.
Caleb, is that the Astros got the trash cans out?
yeah, Carpenter just got rung on a ball that was not a strike at all. But
Man.
I mean, it's the Astros. What do you expect? The MLB just wants them to win for whatever reason.
I would say, like, Higgins, I think, is a guy that I'm not running out there if he's been on the injury report at all because we had 2 weeks ago he was questionable, then he was going to play, and he played like 3 snaps literally came out of the game, got 0 targets. Got zero. This game, he's supposedly questionable again. He ends up playing. Most people probably play him because he has the upside. And 10 targets for 47 yards is abysmal. I'm probably waiting for him to be fully healthy, quote unquote, although it doesn't seem like that ever happens for him. On these last two games, I will say, like Mixon and Dalvin Cook, if you have either of them, go on right now and send them for Brees Hall. Just straight up, and just pray that either the person is a moron or clicks the wrong button. Um, I want to move off these guys so bad. I have Dalvin Cook because I picked 10th in the league, so what are you going to do? But, like, I'm not. He has done nothing against anyone that is a decent matchup. Um, the Ravens fall victim to the greatest franchise in football history, the New York Football Giants. Caleb, I know you didn't quite get the standard hard carry from Lamar this week.
Tough 2 weeks in a row for me with Lamar. But I still think he'll bounce back. I'm still trusting. But yeah, not a good game for him. Kenyon Drake went nuclear this game. I'm not really sure what to do with that information. I don't feel comfortable playing him, but at the same time, like J.K. Dobbins, aside from the game against the Bills where he scored a couple times, has looked like really bad. I saw some stat, I can't remember if it was on a Red Zone or what it was, that he had minus 54 yards versus expected in the first quarter in this game, which is just like the fact that you could like even compile that stat in one quarter is just mind blowing.
I guess their O line is pretty damn good if he was expected to get 54 yards in the first quarter.
Yeah, it's just like one of those things. Like, I don't know if the expected is like Lamar Jackson or like what that is, but like you see that minus 54 number in a quarter and you're just like, how is that possible? He ends up getting benched in this game and they just went with Kenyon Drake, which seems like it was a good choice, at least for this game.
Well, that says a lot because Kenyon Drake, spin it any way you want, he's not good.
No, for sure. And so like I think for me as a Lamar Jackson owner, like this is I'm not a Ravens fan. I don't give a fuck if they win or not. I just want Lamar to go nuclear. And so like I almost like this game, even though Lamar like didn't put up the numbers that I need him to, because like if the Ravens can't run the ball, like it's literally all him. And so like that kind of makes me feel good a little bit.
Well, they can't throw the ball either, except to Andrews right now.
Well, that's the problem, because like Bateman and what's the other idiot they have are both banged up, Duvernay. But like, I think they'll figure it out. Like Lamar is electric. Mark Andrews is awesome. It's just like a matter of right now, it's like literally just those two guys. I think if you get Bateman back healthy and Duvernay at 100%, I don't think they're not like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, but like they're decent players, and with a quarterback that's as dynamic as he is, like they can be effective. So, not too worried yet. Saquon had another pretty nice game. He scored, had like one really long one that he broke that kind of made the stat line look better than it really was. But that's kind of typical with him. Like he'll go most of the game getting bottled up and then just bust one.
He did have a second touchdown that he selfishly chose real winning over winning in fantasy, which is just disgusting.
That is true.
Disgusting behavior. Come on, Saquon.
Yeah. So he looked good. I mean, the Giants, like, they look like they. I mean, look, I don't think they're gonna. I don't think they're better than the Eagles. I don't even think they're better than the Cowboys with Dak Prescott at quarterback. Um, but like they're kind of fun. They're like a little bit feisty. They play teams tough. Um, I think Dable is like a good coach, and it seems like they want to play for him. There's too many issues with that team, which like this isn't an NFL podcast, it's a fantasy podcast, but like they have nobody at wide receiver. They have a lot of problems, but like for what they're working with, I think Dable's done like a really nice job with that team. And certainly like much better than they've looked in the past. So that's again not fantasy related, but I think worth mentioning.
Yeah, Wandale Robinson got in the end zone here. I think you have to grab him this week. Honestly, even if you try to get him this week, there's going to be. I mean, I know waivers cleared, but there was surely some competition, anyways, especially if you have a lot of sharp players in your league. Um, but I think more broadly for the Ravens, like I think this is really good if you're a Bateman owner because even though he wasn't seeing a lot of usage at the beginning of the season, like their offense looked so much better with him on the field. It's made way bigger difference than getting Dobbins back or anything. Because right now, like teams aren't afraid of Devin Duvernay, and I don't even know who their next receiver is, Isaiah Likely or somebody.
Well,
So
they did just sign Deshaun Jackson
that's
today,
true.
so that's
Yeah.
worth
Which
that's worth
is
looking at. I mean, we know.
hilarious because you would think the last thing they need is a deep ball guy when that's literally all their receivers are deep ball guys.
Yeah, I mean, unless you just like Lamar, at least in my mind, is probably one of the better deep ball throwers in the league. He definitely has one of the biggest arms, and so like maybe that's just the offensive strategy is like we're just gonna get receivers that can just run deep. But again, like I mean, Deshaun Jackson's like 35. Like, did we forget that Odell Beckham is still available? I mean, I'd much rather have a guy like that than I know he's kind of like flirting with the LA Rams and things like that. But like that guy was going to be the MVP of the Super Bowl last year if he didn't blow out his knee in the second quarter. I mean, he was eating in that game. Um,
I picked
but
up both
like,
them this week, Odell and Adele.
yeah, I mean,
So
Two
I'm
35-year-old receivers.
Yeah, yeah. So like I don't know. Like maybe if you're really weak at receiver, Deshaun Jackson's worth a look. I mean, we know what he's been able to do in the past, but like it's been a long time since he was that guy. It's like if I was the Ravens, I would have tried to get Odell because I think there's still a lot of juice left in that tank. But
Yeah, he's
you know,
like a
I'm not a GM,
worse.
so
He's like a worse older version of MVS. Like if he doesn't catch a 60-yard touchdown, you screwed up. I mean, if I'm gonna flip that coin, I'd rather flip it with somebody else. But I mean, he did it a couple times last year in the couple games he played. So like, I'm not gonna say he can't, but like, I don't know, 35-year
you're
old
talking about
guy.
Deshaun, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But I
yeah.
mean, I
Where
think
where was he last year? Was he in Oakland? Or Las Vegas or wherever the Raiders were playing last year.
was it them or I thought it was the Rams for some reason.
Let's find out. Bad radio right
Pause.
here.
Yeah, pause.
Oh, he
while we're
was on
looking for
he
that.
was on the Rams though.
That's what
He
I
was on
thought.
he was on the Raiders for the first 9 games, and then he was on the Rams for the last 7 games, but he didn't start
So
at all
he had
for the
18
Rams.
against Tampa Bay, and then he had 16.2 against Dallas. And other than that, his best game was 6.8, and like all of them were under 1 point. So like yeah, basically he's MVS. Like
He
it's
caught a
just all
75-yard touchdown
No,
with the
that's the one I
Rams.
remember. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was like which would never happen now because Stafford can't throw the ball. But I think
Yeah.
I think the plan, like if I was Harbaugh, which clearly I'm not, but like I would want to get Bateman back and get him like 10 targets and open that up because that was like the key I think for this offense, like getting that defense to back off so that Lamar can be Lamar. Um, should really be their plan for getting back. Um, so that is the first half of the Week 6 review. Let's do a quick preview Thursday night. This game is like better than most of the Thursday night games, which isn't saying a whole lot, but like at least
Well, don't
there's
speak too soon. We haven't watched it
that's
yet.
true. At least there's some players that you might actually be playing in this one. Last week it was like I mean, literally, you're not playing anybody in Commanders Bears. But biggest storyline here has got to be D Hop is cleared to play. Roided D Hop, mind you. Caleb, are you gonna run this guy out there tomorrow? And just trust in what he has done basically his whole career.
Uh, I mean, I think if you look at the Cardinals situation, you almost have to, unless you're like just insanely stacked at wide receiver. Like if you went like wide receiver, or something with your first two picks, then like maybe not. But like most people didn't do that. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think you got to play this guy. You look at like what the Cardinals are; they're not a very good team. They tend to be behind a lot and have to throw the ball a lot, particularly in the second half. They don't really have uh, anyone healthy that's a threat at the running back position. James Conner's banged up, which like take a shot for every time you've heard that. You'll be dead in like an hour. And then like I don't even know who they're running out there right now, like Eno Benjamin and someone else. But
Who flopped, flopped hard last week.
yeah, and just like I mean, they're gonna be losing most of their games, just like they have been all year. So like you look at that, Kingsbury to begin with is a guy that's like a pass first, like sort of spread offense coach. Um,
Who
and then
can't
like,
score.
well, I mean, yeah, but
They scored
um,
3 points against the Seahawks. The freaking
yeah,
Seahawks.
I mean
The
they're not a good
Seahawks were
team.
last in like every statistical category on defense, and they scored three
They
points.
they beat the Broncos though. Um, but yeah, so I mean, like, and then so you take all of that. DeAndre Hopkins, like when he's healthy, is one of the better receivers in this league. He's certainly top 10, and on a lot of people's lists, is probably top 5. Um, he's been on steroids for God knows how long. He's probably jacked and super angry right now. So like he's got that going for him. And then the last thing is like Marquise Brown got killed on the field last week. Uh, like he's not coming back. He's dead. Um, so he's out. Uh, and so like the Cardinals don't really have much else to go to here.
Rondale and
Um,
AJ Green.
well, they did just trade for Robbie Anderson too, who's like, by the way, I saw a tweet after Robbie Anderson got kicked out or kicked off the sideline or sent to the locker room, whatever, and it was like, yeah, Robbie Anderson is like if Antonio Brown was ass at football. It was so true. But they
I
do.
saw one. I saw one similar. It was like the AB running around the stadium without his shirt off, and it was like DJ Moore after he hears that Robbie Anderson got re-signed by a different team when doing this.
Can we
That's
can we talk about the Cardinals traded 2 draft picks for this guy? Like he was never going to play another snap for Carolina, and like I can't imagine there was a lot of suitors for like again a guy that sucks and is an absolute cancer in the locker room. So like how do you have
well,
to
you know
give
the
up two
Browns were in.
picks for this guy? Like
The Browns were probably in, dude. They were probably like going to offer up like a 2035 first rounder.
It was
and
like
so they had to make a move.
the equivalent of like it's like Tuesday and you want to pick up a waiver guy, so you like figure out who you're gonna drop, but then you put him on the trade block, and it's like this guy's gonna be free tomorrow, but like today, like what would you like to give up for him? Like apparently 2 draft picks is just
Yeah,
fine.
they got a sixth and a seventh for him, didn't they?
I thought it was a fifth and a sixth actually.
I think it was a sixth and a seventh.
Okay.
Maybe they were conditionals. I don't know, but like, there's been some good players drafted in the sixth round. Tom Brady, Antonio Brown,
Bailey Zappi.
Bailey Zappi. Who knows? But yeah. Anyways, like, unless you're running like Cooper Cup, Stephon Diggs, and Justin Jefferson as your 3 wide receivers, I'm probably starting DeAndre Hopkins if I have him.
Yeah, and you have to remember here, last season when D Hop was healthy, the Cardinals were 7-0. I mean, I can't think of a bigger difference maker that we've seen in football than a guy that could have this team being 7-0. Like honestly, they were probably did they have Byron Murphy last year? I can't remember. Or did they get him this year?
I think they had him last year,
Okay. Either
but I could
way,
be wrong.
having even this identical team at 7-0 is hilarious. So, and Kyler looked like a passable fantasy quarterback. So, um, yeah, I am in agreement. I'm a little bit worried because one, Kyler sucks, and two, Cliff Kingsbury is a freaking moron that sucks at coaching. Um, but the upside is just there, and it's nice that you get to know Thursday night how that played out. If you got 5 points, then maybe you have to make some adjustments for the weekend. But if you get 18 points Thursday night from your receiver, like you're feeling pretty good. You have some flexibility going into the weekend. This is my one question for myself. Olave Thursday night against the Cardinals or Drake London? Drake London plays Cincinnati, I think. Who do you want to play there, Caleb?
Cincinnati's got Eli Apple, so you might want to steer clear of that. I mean, like, the Saints throw the ball like a pretty fair amount. The Falcons don't seem to be interested in doing that at all. And before Olave got hurt and like missed time recently, he looked really, really good. I get that, like, for a lot of those games, if not all of them, it was Winston throwing him the ball, and I think Winston is, if you're, how do I want to say this? If you're talking about fantasy and I have a wide receiver, I'd much rather have Jameis Winston at quarterback than Andy Dalton at quarterback. Now, it's not to say I would rather start Jameis Winston at quarterback in fantasy over Andy Dalton, because you're probably going to get 3 or 4 interceptions with Jameis Winston. But if I have the wide receiver, I probably want Jameis because he's going to fucking throw it. And he doesn't care if the guy's covered or if he's 90 yards downfield. He's still going to try to complete it.
I probably want Jameis over anybody for my wide receivers in fantasy.
I mean, aside from like Patrick Mahomes or like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like Jameis is probably the guy because like he's just going to try to force it in there, and the wide receivers don't lose points for interceptions. So
Right.
Maybe Tua. Tua doesn't care about interceptions either.
That was like
yeah,
the Olave
Tua has
game where
brain
he
damage now.
had the Olave game where he had 300 air yards, and we were like, "What in the hell is that?" Like,
Yes, because Jameis just sees him 70 yards down the field, and he's like, I can throw it that far, and so he just does.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think you got to go Olave as long as you feel good about his health, and like that he'll see snaps. But like, it's not like you really have a lot to lose on the other side either. Like, the Falcons don't throw the ball. And so it's not like Drake London. Like, it's not like you're deciding between Chris Olave and like someone who's got like an 8-point floor, right? Like, Drake London is probably, maybe he catches you a touchdown, gets you 10. Oh, wow. But like, yeah, I mean, you got to go Olave in my mind.
Yeah, I mean I think it's tough because Olave clearly has the worst matchup. Like Byron Murphy's going to be shadowing him presumably,
Right.
and Byron Murphy is like goes under the radar as one of the stud corners in the NFL. I mean, he's put
Yeah, he's very, very good.
the clamps on everybody. I mean, DK Metcalf was on a tear and was just completely invisible last week. Um, so I'm like not feeling good about it, but like I can't run a receiver out there that's only going to have a maximum of 20 opportunities. Like, there's just no way for, even if he gets a 30% target share, that's freaking 6 targets. Like, I mean,
Yep.
I can't survive on that in fantasy. Like, it's conceivable that Olave gets 13, 14 targets in this game. And, I'd rather just chase the volume, especially on Thursday night.
Particularly
Yeah, I
because you think that game will probably be like relatively high scoring at least, right? Like the Cardinals, I mean, as bad of a team as they are, like they can still score a little bit. And I know the Saints defense is good, but like I don't, it just feels better to me. Sorry, Allie.
That's okay. I was gonna say I would run Olave out there, just because Drake London has to split some throws with Kyle Pitts.
I mean, it's tough to compete with Kyle Pitts. He commands
I
like
know.
literally at the minimum 0 targets a game. So,
When you
He's
have
a
Kyle
touchdown
Pitts on the
merchant.
field, it's like no one else, like they're not even looking at anyone else.
I
So
mean,
it's
he
like,
is famously the most talented tight end of all time. I don't know
and the
how.
He ran
most
a
and the
4.4,
most utilized.
and he's fast.
Look, I want to remind people that Cole Kmet is the poor man's Kyle Pitts. And in not the way that anyone ever meant that, it is for sure true.
It's just they both stink, and you didn't have to draft one of them in
Cole
the third
Kmet
round.
sucks slightly less or slightly more than Kyle Pitts, but you got him in the 14th instead of the third. So um, that's all for the first half of the week 6 review. We will do the second half tomorrow. And then we'll be back on the weekend for all of your week 7 um, previews. Some pretty interesting things this week. Like the buys this week are horrid. Every good player that's ever played in the NFL ever is on buy this week. So
Lamar though, not Lamar.
true, but Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown, Miles Sanders, Singletary.
Not
There's
Sun God. He's back.
That's true. There's another QB on buy.
Justin Jefferson is
Yeah,
on bye this
Kirk,
week, I
Justin
think.
Jefferson, Dalvin Cook.
Somehow
And
none of my players are on bye that yet, like this week, except for like Dallas Goddard, which just means like I'm probably gonna find a way to lose this week, and then I'll just get raped for like the next 4 weeks.
are you trying to tell us that you managed to not draft any good players?
No, I mean like I have a good roster. Like if you look at my roster, you're like, this is a loaded team, but like they just underperform. Like I've got here, I'll tell you my roster right now. I've got Lamar.
You have
I
Cam
have
Akers.
no, not anymore. He's off the team. We had to
Man.
send a message. Okay, here's my roster. You tell me this team doesn't sound like it does damage, okay? Keep in mind, I've lost 2 in a row, but
Keep
this
in
is my
mind,
roster.
on YouTube, you're a bird right now with a book on his head.
That's fine. Lamar Jackson, right? Pretty
Okay.
good fantasy quarterback. Joe Mixon stinks this year, but like before the season, you'd be like, yeah, Joe Mixon.
Right.
Christian McCaffrey,
Okay.
Tyreek Hill,
Okay.
Debo Samuel,
Yeah.
Amari Cooper / DK Metcalf. I play them interchangeably at my
Okay.
third wide receiver
Depending
position.
on if Brissett wants to be terrible, hopefully.
Well, you just have no idea. Like it's the most frustrating thing ever because whichever one of them I play, the other one goes
Right.
bananas. But okay, either way, they're both like pretty decent for a wide receiver three.
Yes.
And then I have Dallas Goddard, who's on bye this week, but I picked up Bobby Tonyan to start
Okay.
at tight end. Raheem Mostert in my flex,
Okay.
which I can play him. I can play Jeff Wilson, or I can play Clyde Edwards-Helaire in my flex. I have Evan McPherson at kicker, who is
I thought you had
hasn't been great for
Singletary.
me this year, but huh?
I thought you had Singletary.
I do have Devin Singletary. I don't think he's been in my lineup once this year though.
Okay, but I
He is on my roster,
okay.
yes.
You could pull flex him though, which seems like it might be shaping up to be a better option than we thought.
Yes, agreed. But he's on
Well,
bye
this
this week,
week he's
so
on
he's not
bye.
he's
True.
not in my lineup. Evan McPherson a kicker. Okay. I think we can all agree that's one of the better kickers in the league.
Agree.
He
And
would too. He likes himself.
the Packers defense.
Yeah, I mean, definite improvement at defense, but
But I
You
mean
wouldn't
that's
have
a
guessed that
pretty
at the
good
beginning of the
team.
season.
I
But that's a
know.
pretty good team.
I agree. I know someone that has a shiny, unplayed with Patriots defense.
Well,
So
that person should trade them to me then.
maybe you should ship CMC on over before he gets traded.
Yeah. I mean, my hope and wet dream is going to be when Christian McCaffrey gets traded to the Buffalo Bills and his projected points immediately go from 14 every week to 100. And then that's going to be the
I
culmination of my
I think
life.
he's gonna go to the Steelers, and then his projected points are gonna go to like 0.8.
Yeah, that's just not going to happen.
I don't actually know how the Bills could get him. That's the problem. Is I don't see how one of these better teams can actually acquire him. Like they
Well,
said, the Rams.
they would have to do, yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. They would have to do the Rams strategy where they're just like, all these draft picks we have, we don't care about them.
But the
Take them
cap.
all. The cap doesn't matter
Why?
because, like, somehow every year the Rams, the Browns,
I mean,
and
fair.
like other team, like maybe I can't think of another team, but like those two definitely every year they're signing someone to like 30 million a year contract, and you're just like, how can this team still fit under the cap? I just don't. I don't think the cap exists. Like I think it's just one of those things where it's like we're told that we have. It's like fluoride in the water. Like they're like the cap exists because it's good for you and like it's there, but you're just like, number one, I don't think it's good for me, and number two, it might not actually be real.
And I
Cap
don't
is
really
cap.
need it. Like the Rams are like, we don't really need the cap, and the NFL's like,
Or the draft. Like they're just like, we'll just whatever. Like we'll just take all these other players from these other teams that they've already drafted and we'll just give them our draft picks and then we can have the players.
I mean, they've said the Cardinals have apparently said that the asking price is multiple first rounders. I don't think that's unreasonable. I mean, that
For the
seems like
you mean the Panthers?
what did I say?
Oh, you said the Cardinals.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, the Panthers. They say the asking price is multiple first rounders. That seems like if you genuinely believe you're a contender and you have no running back, like, what do you do?
I read a Schefter article today that said a first rounder or possibly more. If I can get Christian McCaffrey, like if I'm the Bills and I can trade a first rounder to get Christian McCaffrey, even if I'm pretty sure he's locked up next year, but even if he's a rental this year, I mean, the Bills look like they're probably the team to beat, at least right now. But, like, I think that's still kind of up in the air. If you put Christian McCaffrey on that team with Josh Allen, like, barring the entire team plane just, like, going down in the middle of the ocean, like, I don't see any way that team loses.
Yeah, I mean, I worry, like, for me, if I had CMC, which I don't, because I don't like that injury risk. But like if I did, I actually would be a little bit worried about that because part of what he's been for his entire career is that he's insane and they've never had anybody else. Like if he goes somewhere where they have all these other weapons, I'm actually a little bit worried that you know Diggs is going to eat into that. Gabe Davis is going to catch his 2 passes for touchdowns every third week. Like I feel like his projections could really go down depending on how they use him because like we see that now like Singletary has been remarkably efficient like every time he touches the ball and they're just like yeah but like James Cook is like good and everybody's like no he's not like all he does is put the ball on the ground.
Or Zach Moss. Every time I see Zach Moss catch a ball or take a carry, I want to just freaking put a 9mm down my throat and swallow it. It's disgusting.
I mean it's like I think this week was interesting. Like I don't own Singletary anywhere, but like watching that game, it's like okay, they need to win this game, and it's close, and it's Singletary, and like they were actually like running on 3rd and 1, which like yeah,
With a
like
running back?
right, like I mean I'm pretty sure he had like 6 7 yards a touch in this game, so like I'm interested to see how that develops because for better or worse in the NFL, like everybody has 2 running backs, but you have to have one that like gets in the game, is in a rhythm and like plays a lot of the snaps because I mean that's just what you need in the NFL. And Singletary is clearly that guy if they need that guy. And maybe they're starting to wake up to it, even though it's been obvious to anybody that watched like a half of one Bills game this year. Um,
I
anyways,
think
that was
I
way
think
off
too.
topic, but
I think too, real quick on like Josh Allen, they have him run the ball so much, but with some of these concussion protocol things changing, like he takes one big hit in one of these games and he's out. So you just wonder if they're going to start utilizing their running backs more just to stay away from that risk of having to have them sit. I mean, how many quarterbacks this week are in concussion protocol? When who knows if they would have even been in like this week? Kenny Pickett's on concussion protocol, but he's practicing. He's like full practice, but he's on the protocol. So like if they're going to have everyone on protocol all the time, they might as well start using a running back to run the ball like they're supposed to. But
Well,
yeah,
Josh Allen has no regard for his own safety. Like, if you watch
yes.
that guy play football, he's a lunatic. Like,
Yes.
he had that play last week where he like bounced it outside and then like hurdled a linebacker, and it
Yep.
was like it's so sick to watch. But like, if I was a Bills fan, I'd be like, dude, please stop, because if you get
right.
hurt, that's a wrap.
We
Especially
have pace.
now because it's like
Well, it's like
okay
they're
in the
already
playoffs.
established. Yeah, right. They're already established as like one of the best teams, if not the best team in the NFL. Like, you don't really have to do that. Like, as good as they are, it doesn't really matter if you go like 10 and or I shouldn't say 10 because it's 17 games now. Like, there's not that big of a difference between you going like 12-5 and like 14-3 if you're as good as they are. Like, you're gonna kick the shit out of whoever you play in the first matchup, regardless. And then like you have to win. You'll get a bye, so you have to win like one game, one real competitive game to be in the Super Bowl. And
Yep.
like to your point, like you just want everyone to be healthy. And like that's a team where like if Josh Allen gets hurt, that team goes from number one in terms of like teams I don't want to play to like, yeah, I'll play them. Like I don't really care. They're still good. They still have weapons, but like without Josh Allen, it's like you take Mahomes off the Chiefs, like put like Blake Bortles on the Chiefs instead of Patrick Mahomes. It's like it's a completely different thing. Like no one wants a piece of that with Mahomes at quarterback, but like you take him off and put like a backup in there, it's like okay, fine.
Yeah,
Yep.
I mean, if it's the AFC Championship game and like 4th and 1 and you roll out and there's a linebacker there, like yeah, you put your head down, but like some freaking game against the Dolphins in 100-degree weather week 4. Like, just stop, dude. Like, I don't even like the guy, but like when I watch him do that, I'm like, dude, if I like this guy, I would be like, stop doing that. Like, if I'm hoping you're my quarterback for 16 years. Like, don't put your head down and get smashed in week.
And,
At
like,
the same
it
time,
helps
it is
them that
awesome though.
Oh,
It is
for
awesome
sure.
to watch. Like it is sweet.
I
But-
wonder if he even can't get hurt. The guy's like a total monster. Like he's
well,
just huge.
that's what I was gonna say. Like it seems like he's invincible because like I've seen the guy just
Yeah.
get absolutely clobbered before, and he just like pops right up like he's a fucking
Yep.
whack-a-mole. Like it's insane. Like I don't know if the guy can be injured. I guess we'll find out eventually. But
Yep.
yeah, to your point, like he's incredibly like exciting and also just seems like he might be invincible, so that would be cool.
Yep.
Okay, well, we said we were going to be done, but now we're actually going to be done. We will do the second half of week 6 and be back later in the week for week 7 stuff, talking about who you can pick up and play for all your guys that are on bye, except for Caleb because he doesn't have anybody on bye, so no worries.
Like my whole bench is on bye though, so if like one of my guys is ruled out this week, I'm just so dicked because I won't have anyone to play. I'll be picking up like Dave Smith and putting him at wide receiver.
All right, see ya.